Hey everybody, it's Boardman21 and today we're shaking things up and doing something that we haven't done before. It's not an interview, it's not a podcast, it's just going to simply be a friendly conversation between me and Lizard IRL, and we're just going to go over every skill for the Void Knight / Sentinel. Every skill that you can unlock in that tree and for that branch and for that character. We won't have the ones at the top of the Paladin or the Forge Guard tree, but all the other skills, about 20 of them, we went over in great detail. How we build them, how we wouldn't build them, what we like about them, what we don't like about them, how we change them if we could, how we like, the interactions or the game style, what's missing, basically anything and everything that you could talk about with these skills and what synergizes and blah blah blah. We went over it, and it's a super informative. I know that between me and him, we came up with like several different new builds that we would like to try just from going over each node individually and really looking in depth about them. But again, this video in general is not going to be about building anything or how to. It's not a super informative thing, but there may be something you didn't know on how something interacts or works, and hopefully it's just some good background noise while you play Last Epoch or while you're at work or something, and maybe you'll hear something that you want to try. But let me know what you think of the video, if you like it, if you don't like it. This is a part 1 of 4 planned. We do plan on doing all of the classes and then a 5th one when the rogue is released. But go ahead and just let me know what you think about it, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so we'll just start with like Vengeance.
Cool.
So if you were a brand new character, or you had a brand new guy that came in and was in your stream, and you had Vengeance, what would you tell him was the best way to set it up right off the bat? Because this is probably one of the first skills that he would use on a Sentinel character.
Well, I think the first thing I would ask the player is if he wants to do hit damage or if he wants to do dot damage. Because there's some points that you always want in Vengeance, in my opinion, which are the bolster points, which are the ones that make you take less damage. And those points, I would say, they're kind of like you want them on any build, pretty much. But if you're going for hit damage, which I think is probably the best version of Vengeance at the moment, Executioner is really good because it's giving you multiplicative damage up to 90%. So those points are very nice. I would say the double riposte is really nice, and the attack speed is very nice. So those are your core points that you always want, I would say.
Yeah.
If you're going dot, I think I like Blade Assault personally because it's basically another attack that is gonna proc all your ignites or whatever. But that would depend if you're doing like an Eye of Rain build or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's the same way I do. I mean, there's really, in my opinion, only 2 ways to play Vengeance. You're either going full attack speed and your global damage with it, or you're going full defense. So you're either going to go for the hit damage, or you're going for the attack speed and the damage reduction that you can get with it.
Yeah. I think the third, Zealot's technique, the one that gives you another riposte, an extra 10% damage taken. I haven't even been taking that one because I think it's too much investment and I'm already very tanky. But if you just want to use Vengeance for tankiness, and you don't care about the damage you do with it because you're doing damage with other stuff like hammers or a different attack, right? You definitely can just go for that and take the extra damage mitigation. Why not? So yeah.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So basically what we can take out of this skill is you either want to go up or you want to go up and directly to the left. Like you're going to not use the bottom of the tree.
Yeah. I think Vengeance right now, it's so good that it kind of like undermines a bit the other melee abilities. I was talking about this later yesterday with other people. But I think some of the base, how Vengeance gives you, like by base with no points, gives you 40% less damage taken when you strike something and you get riposte and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that mechanic should get extended to just like melee attacks in general. Because right now, if you wanna make a melee class, it's like, and you're playing Sentinel, for example, it's like, okay, do I want to use Vengeance or do I want to take 80% more damage, right? Like if you want to do like a Rive build or like any of the other melee skills. Or even if you're making other skills, you kind of want Vengeance in it just for the mitigation. So maybe they could move a bit of the damage mitigation to just the general melee kind of like play style, I think.
So you don't think that Vengeance is like too powerful with the damage reduction? You actually think that it should be moved on to more melee skills?
I think vengeance mitigation is very powerful. What I don't, but I don't dislike it being powerful. What I dislike is it's only on vengeance, right? Like I think vengeance is great to play. Like everyone loves vengeance, everyone's playing it. It's great, and it makes you feel strong. It makes you feel tanky. You're a tank, and I think that's good. The problem is like because it's so good, it kind of makes other skills look trash when they could be fun, right? Like right now, if I'm making a Sentinel, it's like, why would I use a skill that is not Vengeance? I'm just gonna take 80% more damage. That is basically the discussion, right? So if you take a bit, if the other skills also had a bit of damage mitigation, just for the sake of being melee, right? I think that would open up builds a lot. Because if you think about it, in many games, right, in many RPGs, range is a huge advantage because you're not getting hit, right? Because you have the range. So melee should always have like a bit of a, I don't know, something going for it, right? Like why would you go melee over range? Like if you're not getting some tankiness or something, in my opinion. And I think this could be applied to other classes too. You know, like for example, swipe. Why swipe can't give, or harvest even? Why can't it give you a bit of damage mitigation just because you're going in, right? You're melee. I think it would make other melee classes more satisfactory to play, and you wouldn't feel like you have to use vengeance or you're gonna die, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do think it might be a little too powerful. 66% damage reduction is like just huge with it.
Yeah.
But it reminds me a lot of Lunge. Like Lunge was this OP thing that you just had to have for defense.
You have to have, yeah.
And now that's gone, and it makes me think that they're going to do something with Vengeance to kind of get rid of that.
Yeah, but I think they're gonna be a bit careful with Vengeance, because Vengeance is actually fun. Vengeance is actually the reason Sentinel is now getting popular. People are pushing it. Like if you look at the ladder, right, from the last months, who's played Sentinel? Misha, right? And that's it. No one played Sentinel because everyone just like. So I think they made a lot of great changes for Sentinel to be fun to play, and right now the Vengeance is fun. Yes, it's a bit maybe overtuned, but I think it's more that we need to make other stuff great and not so much gut Vengeance. You know, like I'd rather have a bunch of skills that are great than one skill that is gonna, get nerfed. So now all skills are shit, kind of thing. That's how I look at it. But yeah.
So you said that you put some points into Blade Assault and you really like that as a second attack. Have you ever like completely built into the Iron Blade chance and like into its damage? I mean, I noticed that almost the entire bottom of the skill tree has to deal with that. You can get it to ricochet, do all sorts of things. Have you ever built completely?
I have never built for the full damage. I have only got the 4 points in Blade Assault just to proc Ignite with Iron Ring and Manifest Weapon and all that. But I don't know. Maybe it's something to try. But again, it feels a bit like if I want to go into that, it means that I can't take the stuff on top, right? So it's like
you're gonna lose all that attack speed and damage reduction.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't know if it's worth it for me,
Do you think that means that the skill tree, since it's technically only viable on one side, do you think it needs a rework?
I think it needs love on all the other stuff. I think the other options should be more attractive for sure. Like, for example, I think there's this vengeful fighter, right? That is hit damage under 50% HP, and it's 15% per point. It's like, why would I take those when I can just take Executioner? That is always 15% more damage. So it's just, you gotta make the other points more attractive, I feel.
Yeah, and I think one way they could easily do that, and one thing I really hate about skills is when there's more than like 2 or 3 points that you can put into a node. Like I don't like that you can go up and you have to put 8 points into the attack speed. I feel like there should be like 3 there, and then the rest of them should be hidden somewhere else where you actually have to unlock. You have to get Iron Blades because there's another 24% attack speed or damage reduction behind that.
I agree, especially the points that have nothing to do with each other. For example, if you look at Vengeance, the Zealot's technique, right? It's like, all right, you get another repose damage taken, but in order to get that, you have to get this like Dark Duelist. And again, it's not bad, right? But You basically have to invest 5 points just to get to that, and probably it kind of feels bad to do that because, oh man, I could use these 4 points in making this cool build kind of thing. So they could definitely adjust a bit. Like some of the points give you too much for 1 point, and some of the points give you shit for 8 points, and you still need them, so it kind of feels bad. So they could definitely do some adjusting there, but I'm sure they will balance it slowly. They've been doing this lately. With every patch, they remove points here and there. They change the values a bit, so it feels a bit better. But definitely the attack speed, for example, it feels a bit bad to invest 8 points for 40% attack speed. It feels a bit, like 40. Like you can get. I feel like that's like 4 points worth it, not 8, but you still kind of need it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that feels bad. I mean, that 48% attack speed that you get is huge. But
yeah.
I feel like the 8 points shouldn't be all in one spot. I feel like you should.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to say. Because it basically makes the build diversity. You can't get away from not using those points, and because they require so much investment, it means you can only branch so much from the core layout, right? So.
Yeah, if you want the extra damage reduction and you want the attack speed, you've already used all 16 points. You can't go anywhere else.
Basically. What are you gonna do now?
Yeah, I'd really like to see a rework on that a little bit, or at least even if they kept all the nodes that are in there, just rearranged it, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, just rearrange, maybe give values that are a bit more friendly, for sure. But I love Vengeance. I just want to say that. I love Vengeance.
Yeah, I feel like Vengeance is one of those almost mandatory skills. And you start out with it, so it's one that you're going to use. Yeah. You're going to learn to like it.
Yeah. What I like about Vengeance too, is which I think not all the skills have this, is that Vengeance, if you're making like a Vengeance build, it really makes you feel a sense of progression. For example, if you first get Vengeance and you get the 20 points, but your weapon is bad, you don't have all your passive points yet for the flat damage, you don't have a good weapon, etc. Vengeance is not, you don't have the idols for Vengeance. You're not going to do much damage. You're going to be hitting for what, 100, 200? But then you start getting your idols, you start getting your gear, you start getting like your crit chance, and then you take one ability that was doing 100 damage to crit for 6k in the period of 200-hour investment on your character or whatever. And I think that's really, really good. There's a lot of abilities that they kind of they just give you damage straight up, right? And it's kind of hard to make them better or worse. They're just you don't really get the sense of progression, if you know what I mean, when you're actually building the character. And I really like that about Vengeance. You can feel that you can get stronger, and you could feel Vengeance getting better as you level and as you gear. And I really like that, for example.
Yeah, that's one thing that I will agree. I love Vengeance for that, and there's even more to it than that. You even synergize other skills with it, like Abyssal Echoes, which just took it to another notch. It took a long time, and I mean, look how long we've been playing the game, and even Misha put hundreds of hours into her character on this, and never found that. Because everyone's Vengeance is a damage reduction skill. There's no damage to it. But
but again, it comes down to also the changes they made, because you couldn't really do that before because you couldn't sustain it mana-wise, right, with the old Sentinel. But now that you get the mana, it opened up these possibilities, what you're talking about. And I think it's so funny how volatile, my build, the Turbo Vengeance thing, how volatile reversal gives you the attack speed, so you can sustain more echoes, and echoes gives you the damage, and you create these three abilities that need each other, and they work perfectly synergy. I love that. I think that is so good. There's not that many builds that you can do that. So I would love to see more of that. So I feel like a lot of the times when I'm making builds in Last Epoch, I feel like maybe the skills are a bit disconnected. Each skill has a purpose, but they don't necessarily I mean, there's some exceptions, right? Free Shaman, all the skills help each other. But you know what I mean? All the top builds actually have this, but I would like to see more interaction between skills for sure, the ones we just talked about.
Yeah, I would say the Shaman or the Primalist in general is probably one of the most synergized classes, where you can put 5 together and they work well.
Yeah.
It's different than like the mage, which I don't think the mage has enough skills to do that, because
Yeah,
there's
I
you
agree.
have like 2 fire, and then you have 2 cold, and you have 2 lightning, and you can't
Yeah.
synergize 5 together because they're all, elementals and they're out
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
But yeah, Primal, I
Uh,
feel like Primalist is the best, and then Sentinel's kind of like right there in the middle, where you can find like
yeah.
4 that work really good, and the 5th one's just kind of there.
Exactly. But I would just love more, just more interactions, because it almost feels like you always have to use vengeance in there. Like, I would love if you could just do kind of like non-vengeance builds, unless you're doing shield throw, right, or hammers. But yeah.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
that takes us back to your idea about the whole damage reduction being on more. I do think that Rive
Yeah.
really needs that, and it would
Yeah,
open
exactly.
it up.
Like, if I want to, we go back to what we were saying. Like, why would I make a Rive build, right? When by taking Rive, I'm just accepting, okay, I'm gonna take 70% more damage. Like, and you're a melee character, so it's like, well, why do I want that? Like, and you could argue, if that's gonna be worth it, then Rive needs to do shit ton of damage to make it worth it, right? Like because the DPS change from a good vengeance build and a Rive build is gonna be pretty similar, I would say, right? If you go like with the full crit Rive and so on. But again, like, vengeance is just gonna have the edge because of the damage mitigation. If Rive have some of that, then you could have a you could actually have to think, okay, maybe Rive is better in this situation. I lose a bit of damage mitigation, but I get this and this and this, right? So.
And I think they actually kind of tried to do that with Rive. I mean, we could jump into Rive next.
Yeah, sure.
You take the skill, and they don't want you to have all the, they want to separate skills. They don't want them to be anything, super similar. Otherwise, it's not a new skill.
Yeah.
So Rive, I think what they tried to do with Rive was create it to where you get a bunch of leech instead of damage reduction. Kind of a different way of survivability. Because there's actually a lot of leech that you can get on this bad boy.
Yeah.
You can get 10% of the entire
on the third strike, right?
Yeah, and then you can also get the 15%
global
for a whole 4 seconds. That's damage you do with any other skill. You're actually leeching 15% of that. That's huge.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. But again, I feel like those points are also, for example, so far apart, right? Like, you have the leech on the third strike on the top of the tree, and then you have the assassins. Well, the one that gives you global leech, and it's on the bottom tree, and it kind of like forces you to go into that. For example, if you want to get the global health leech, you gotta go the ignite route. It's like, it just feels like those points should be more accessible. I always found Rive a bit awkward. Like, because I feel like I like everything, but everything's like, the tree is a bit all over the place, I feel.
And it is, and I feel like there should be more symmetry in skills like this. Like, when you have this 15% global down the bottom, it shouldn't be only behind Ignite. You should be able to get that at the end of the Void Tree.
I completely agree.
You should be able to get it at the end of the third strike. It should be far enough out there to where you can't do like 2 branches and get there, but you can decide which way to play the skill and then get Leech at the end of it.
For example, I love what they do, for example, on Fireball, for the Sork, where you, if you want to get to channeling, right, the channeling nodes, you can either go the cast speed route or the ignite route, right? Like, to get to that lower point that has the channel. And I love that, because you as a player, like, oh, maybe I value a bit more to get to the same objective. You have 2 paths, and that feels so. I feel like as a player, it feels so satisfactory. Where you want the homing, right? You want that point, but you can take different paths. And I think that if you only have one path, and you don't like the path, but you want what's at the end, it kind of like makes this feeling of, well, I need this and I have to take the shitty points, so I guess, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. The only problem with that is I'm sure balancing becomes much harder.
Yeah, but that's not my job.
But yeah, the ability to have multiple choices is always something that everyone's going to want. No one wants to be stuck into having to always play it the same way. Just
to be honest, kind of similar at what they're doing with, if you look at Rive and you look at Overwhelm, right? The third strike hit damage, right?
Yeah.
You can get there with 2 axes. You can either go for the hit damage, right? Or you can go for the third strike area. For example, I think that's sick, right? Because you're basically building for your third strike, right, and your damage, But what do you prefer? Do you want more damage? Do you want more area? And you can use these two paths to get to that juicy third strike hit, right? And I think that's really cool. I want to see more of that, especially to get to those key nodes, that really make the builds.
And if you look at the Rive tree, they have like a half semicircle going. The whole left side is kind of all interconnected like that.
Yeah.
It almost makes you think that if you played Wolcen for its short time period there, right?
I did, yeah.
And you have your passive tree that you could get into, and it was a big circle, it was a big spear, and it was, you built your way. Yeah. I feel like these trees should look a lot more like that. Like, they should be circled out, so there's like many pathways, and you work your way out.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So it's a bit more radial and a bit less like path, right?
Yeah, and so as you get out there, you're farther away from the opposite side, so you can't really get all of it, but you have multiple pathways to get to whatever it is you're trying to get to.
Yeah. I agree with that.
And I feel like Rive started out as a half radial, and then it kind of
and then
got weird.
Yeah, the lower part gets weird, man. Like, what is happening here? I think there's I talk about, I don't know what you think about this, but I think a lot of the stuff that changes behavior of skills should be like maybe like closer to the center kind of feel. For example, how like for example the double dash that skips the third hit, right? That thing is so far away, right? And I feel like it completely changes how the skill works. And I don't know, I feel like you should be able to access this, obviously not right at the start, right? Because you want some sort of sense of progression. But I think it would be nice if you could access them a bit easier. Because basically, if you want to get that, you can you have to invest so much points in the way to get there that by the time you get there, you only have so many points to use somewhere else. So it kind of like limits your options.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't say this one's so bad. The one that makes me the most upset in the entire game that I can't get out of my head is Fireball. I hate that you have to take the mana, the reduced mana cost before you can get to channeling, because it's completely useless for channeling. And I hate when you build into something and then it completely negates all the points you've used so far just for something.
I also hate that for example, for when you're leveling with Hammer Throw, and you want to get the orbit hammers, right? The first point, but the points before that is like make the hammers don't go back, right?
Yeah.
And you basically have that situation where I'm literally saving points before I get into there, because for a brief level, for a level or something, my skill is actually gonna be worst if I build to the point I want to get, right? So by getting the we can talk about hammers later, but yeah.
Yeah, they did, and that's what they changed with Meteor. Meteor was set up that way, where everything kind of had a negative effect, and so
I like new Meteor.
Yeah, the new one's awesome, but everyone went to Glacier there for forever because Glacier had all these bonuses and no negative effects, and then Meteor got reworked and now it's great. But
we need more of that. The Meteor treatment, that's basically what we need more overall. I mean, some of those skills we also have to think. Some of those skills are very old, right? Like the game has significantly changed. I think that the devs are also getting better at making the skills with experience and what they learned. So you can definitely tell like all the new stuff that they're releasing. It's definitely way better quality than some of this older stuff, right?
Oh, definitely. So, and I think I know they said they wanted to keep the game slow, but I feel like it's picked up in pace a little bit. I think that damage numbers have gotten a little higher than what they want. I mean, there was that big nerf where they brought it down with the armor protections.
Yeah.
But it was so much harder trying to get damage back in the day. Like, even when it used to be easy. Like, for the training dummy, you can hit the training dummy so much harder now than you used to be able to. And
I think we also got better, right? We also found ways to do damage better.
Oh, yeah, we definitely found the synergies. But I remember
exactly. Like, players got better also, so...
When a lot of those skills, they were just really hard to make do really good, and then they reworked it and just kind of buffed them, and I think that really helped. And I feel like some skills just haven't got that yet.
Yeah, I agree. You can definitely. I would say the majority of skills are pretty viable in Last Epoch. I think what you consider viable, you're similar to me, where you're looking at the 150 to 100 wave mark in Arena. I think pretty much most of the skills can do that, just if you build properly, right? You were talking this in a recent video of yours.
Yeah, I would say.
But You definitely feel some skills need that extra love, right? Because that's kind of like where they cap, kind of.
Oh yeah,
So.
you can, with any set of, if you're using 5 skills, any combination of 5 can make it to wave 150. It's more about the defense than it is the skills you've chosen.
Yeah.
The only one I would argue is that you're never going to make it to 150 with Hungering Souls, but...
Hey dude, you gotta get those idols to cast Hungering Souls, you know?
Yeah, that thing needs some love for damage. I really hope they boost it up in this next patch.
I tried using the single one. I was a bit disappointed.
Oh, dude, I maxed that one. I did everything you could possibly do for it. I had the damage converted to, or the leech converted to damage at 10 times its value. I had Death Seal boosting my damage. I was wearing Insanguius, so I was missing like 99% of my life.
Yeah.
I did everything you could possibly do. Increase the base damage. I had a weapon that was made all necrotic for it. I did everything you could. Did the single target, increase the damage, and then it did more hit damage per minion, or there's some node you could take.
Yeah.
And I had a bunch of minions going just to try and boost it that way. And like 2k crit was the max I could get out of it. And that was like, that was just fully dedicated. I was like, yeah, there's...
Yeah, and then you look at Glacier, right? Or a Lightning Blast or Meteor. To be honest, any Sork skill. And it's just like, alright.
Yeah, it hits faster and it'll do more than 2k without even building into it. I was like,
yeah, exactly.
Hungering Souls is not going to work out.
Yeah. But yeah, so what do you think about Rive? Do you like it? Or...
I like Rive. I don't know if you've seen... I did a build on a lot of the Sentinel skills when we found out about the whole idols being multiplicative.
Yeah.
And Rive was actually one of the funs. I like the third strike area. When you really, increase that area and you get that hit, it's really nice to watch you swipe a full circle and kill everything around you.
Yeah, I think when you do the 100% crit, kind of like third strike area, it's kind of, it opens it's actually the thing I like the most about Rive, because it basically means if you build for the third strike crit, and basically you just build around the third strike, right? It also means that you don't need to use a Sofnia, right? So you don't need to build like melee, you don't need to build melee crit because you're gonna crit anyway. So you can, and you don't need to use the passives to get more crit chance or gear to get more crit chance because you're gonna crit regardless. So that opens up so many. I want to play with that a bit, but maybe I wait till they buff it a bit. But because you could use, for example, a mace, right, and use all these like affixes and passives that gives you more damage while wearing a mace or an, you can craft like a lot of like physical increased damage on your weapon. So you could, I bet you can do a basically huge damage just because you don't have to build into crit and you can just go flat damage everywhere.
Yeah, I'm actually on that character that I did the Rive build with. That's the one I'm looking at, and that's what I did. I built into that, so I had the 100% crit on the third strike. I'm still using a Sadhana because it has that really high 95 melee physical damage, but I put added melee physical damage and increased melee attack speed.
I see. So you did the same, but but with the Somnia,
Yeah, I didn't need that crit anymore.
Yeah. I was thinking about the axe just because you have these new points, right, on the passives, on the Sentinel base tree, the Mail Crusher.
Yeah, for that extra damage.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm pretty sure there's a new affix also that gives you flat damage or something with wielding a mace. So maybe you could get that on gear, but maybe you need defense, so maybe not.
Yeah, probably.
I think the animation of Rive is a bit weird sometimes. I like the third streak, but the first two that he does this little jumping thing.
Yeah, I don't even see them, especially when mobs around. I just wait for the swipe. I go, okay, there goes the third one. I got
some, there goes the third one. Yeah.
I got some global leech now.
I just wish it had a bit of damage mitigation, so it didn't feel like a straight up downgrade from Vengeance kind of thing. Because I think the ability has some potential. It's just a shame that you're just not gonna be as tanky, and you kind of want to be tanky, right? So hope they address that, but we'll see.
Yeah, and it's I like how many different ways you can play it. I've played it on. You can use it with all the classes too. I've played it on Paladin, I played it on Forge Guard, and I played it on the Void Knight. And the Void Knight's actually my favorite. I like going into that skill. That's why I have it. When I did the Rive build video, I did it as a Void Knight because of all the void damage that you can build into on that. You get the 100% more void damage just on that tree. Like you literally double your damage.
That's actually very smart also because Void Knight has the crit multiplier, right?
Yep.
But he doesn't have crit chance. But again, you don't need crit chance because you have 100%. So it's actually a good idea.
Yeah, and I think in that Void Knight we were critting for over 10k with it. Like it was
Yeah. I saw that video. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. Those 10k crits, it's good, really good damage. And were you using the crit multiplier, like the nodes? I think there's Rive crit multiplier or something. Idols.
Let me see what I got here.
About this?
I think there's some idols, but on this character, I don't think I was doing it.
I think I might have them.
Yeah, I was using the idols that gave increased void damage for 4 seconds on a
skill. You have there's Rive critical strike multipliers, and they roll up to 45% actually. So you put 4 of those bad boys right there. There's like 200% crit multiplier.
That'd be pretty crazy.
I'll try this after this. I'm actually curious now. All right.
Yeah, we're gonna come up with like 10 different builds we need to try doing this.
Yeah. It's kind of like we're theory crafting while talking about it with the back and forth with the brainstorming, huh?
Yeah, we're getting a bunch of step 2s in right now.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Warpath, one of the like most controversial, popular skills in the game.
Yeah, we went from the good stuff to the sad stuff.
That's exactly how Warpath worked. It was good. Yeah. It was really good. It got way too hard nerfed, and now it's kind of like, nah.
It feels to be a bit the policy, right? With 11-hour games, like when there's something that is very, very good, they kind of like nerf it to the ground, and then they kind of like start building up again. And probably from a design point of view, from the developer's point of view, it's probably better because they just think they probably need to just nerf it completely because the core value of the skill, they just like are against it, right? Yeah, but obviously from a player standpoint, it feels awful, right? Because you have this skill that you really like, and then suddenly you can't play it for like 2 months till it's buffed again. And to be honest, it's still pretty bad, right? After all these like small buffs that it's been getting, I feel like it needs 2 times the buffs it's got so far.
I will say it's actually usable now, though, so that's the one. You can actually build with it.
But I think the scary part about Warpath is that every time I see a new player coming to Last Epoch, right? What do? They build Warpath, right? That's what people do. You know, like you get into a new RPG, you do your spin to win, easy, noob-friendly kind of build just to, rush the campaign and kind of like learn the game. You see that every time I see like a new streamer, they're doing this or Sorcerer. Those are the 2 things they do, right?
Yep.
And I think it's kind of like, I think that's kind of like Warpath should be almost, it should be like this kind of like skill that is accessible. You can use it straight up. You can kind of like a bit noob friendly at the beginning, but you can scale it later on if you desire to. And right now, just to make it work, you need so much knowledge. Like if you're a new player and you get Warpath, I mean, you can make Warpath work, Boardman, but imagine if you're like a noob, right? Like you're gonna struggle because. I think they need to be a bit careful of that because spin to win is like a staple. I don't personally like spin to win, but I know people do. So maybe try to make sure that the players who are looking for that first touch enjoy it, because it might create some rejection to the game. Like they play Warpath and they go like, "Oh, this sucks. Like I'm not playing this game." Fuck,
Oh yeah, I've even seen that in the chat. It's happened.
Yeah, exactly. Like people come like, oh, I'm spin to win doesn't work. This is shit. I'm going back to PoE or whatever, right? And it's kind of like a shame because they're judging like the game for like the one skill that is just pretty bad.
Well, the one thing with Warpath, and the reason I think they should bring it back to the game and make it, at least they shouldn't have nerfed it as soon as they did. They should have left it where it was at until they brought some more new skills in the game. Because the one thing that Warpath has, that's the only thing in the game, is it's the only channeled ability that you can move while using it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's the only one in the entire game that lets you do that is why like it should be usable. It should be good.
Yeah.
Until they shouldn't have nerfed it as hard as they did until they had something else that people could try instead. That was good.
Yeah, especially because there's so many affixes that would be so like every time I look at Warpath and I look at all the protections while channeling affixes and all that. It's like, man, I really wanna. Like, you could just look at the numbers of how tanky you can get in your head, right? And it's like, damn, I really want to use this, but I can't, because well, I can, but I'm not gonna do damage. So
Yeah, Warpath is perfect right now for being a spin to win tank, but without the win. It's just a spin to survive.
Spin to live.
Yeah. I think what it really needs.
Yeah.
Is,
Sorry.
I wouldn't even say it needs like a damage boost, because I kind of like where it's at. Like, I don't want it to be something that just goes through, you spin and move and destroy everything. But I feel like the Sentinel needs some skills that you could insta-cast with it.
Yeah, because right now, what can you instant cast? Echoes, right? And
Echoes is going to buff your damage over time and your melee damage, but neither of that's really going to help Warpath. Like, the melee damage, kind of, but Warpath just doesn't do enough damage to be that good. You need something like Devouring Orb that can shoot stuff off and actually do decent hit damage.
But again, you have to stop to cast the Devouring Orb. Just the fact that you have to stop so much with Warpath feels a bit... Or for example, how do you get your mana back with Warpath? You have to stop on Vengeance? Like, come on. It just... that's what I mean, right? Like, I think a Warpath build should never have Vengeance. It should be Warpath, Lunge if you want some mobility, maybe Volatile Reversal, whatever, some buff skills here and there, Echoes, Orb, whatever you want, but not. It just feels so bad that you have to have Vengeance on your bar, just so you get mana. And I'm spinning. Oh, wait a minute, that's 10 seconds of Vengeance the air, so I get mana.
Well, I mean, you do have Volatile Reversal. When I was running Warpath, I had
for the mana back.
Yeah, for the mana back, I had Time Reversal on Instacast. So the problem is it was only good for Arena. If you did it in the Monolith, you just kept going back to the same spot. You weren't advancing at all.
And not only that, but the mana back on Volatile Reversal is a bit buggy, right? So I assume, at least for me, it's a bit buggy, the mana part component of it. So
I do hope they change that. I think they should just make it give you mana back. I don't think it should go to where you
like a flat.
Because sometimes it's 2 seconds, it works for like 20 minutes, and all of a sudden you've had mana
all
for
of the
30
time
minutes.
You go negative.
It's like, what?
It happened to me that I'm like full mana, I volatile, and I go negative. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? I was in the... Like, I didn't even use mana in the last 20 seconds. What happened? I'm sure they will fix that by release, so it's fine.
Alright, well, digging into Warpath, what do you think is the next thing they should do with it? Do you think it should get some more damage, or do you think that it should, move faster, or pull harder, or have some sort of CC with it? I think
Warpath requires too much investment for what it does. For example, once you get all the points, all the idols, it's kind of like usable, you know what I mean? And I think it should be usable kind of like with half the investment. Like, for example, maybe the base area should be a bit bigger. The base damage should be a bit higher. I don't understand why, for example, it has so many debuffs. There, like, for example, because if you wanna make ailments, right? You wanna do bleed or something, or you wanna do ignite. Well, you're only applying it at half the efficiency, right?
Yep.
So it's like, why? I don't understand. Like, it should. If anything, it should be. Like, the good thing about Warpath is that it benefits double from attack speed, right, or some stuff. Like, it has a more efficiency with attack speed because it hits faster. So why not just make it good at ailments, since nothing else is really good at ailments in the first place? I just need Warpath just needs to find its identity, and get that a bit buffed. Because right now it just feels like it's kind of like does a bit of everything, but it's not good at anything. And it also requires a lot of investment for what you get it to do, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I agree. Although I do kind of like that because it does twice as many hits, that it's the things outside of its skill tree should apply half of the elements. It used to, when it used to be really good, that was broken and it was actually doing 100%, and that's when it was doing really, really good. But I do feel like it should have some ailments inside its tree that give it a good boost.
Exactly. At least give it some inside something, that the attack speed can benefit from. Because definitely the one base damage hits are not going to, right? So
yeah, if you go down to like Molten Path on the bottom right and Warforge, you can only get 6% ignite chance per point. You can get 8% ignite chance per point.
And ignite is not even that great till they buff it right next patch. So I will see what they do with ignite. But
I mean, they should
maybe all of this is gonna be.
It should literally be about. I mean, so you get 8% ignite chance for +1 mana per second. Like,
Yeah.
that's just, how would that ever be worth it? It should be 80% ignite chance per point.
That's
Like,
another big thing about Warpath. Like, I know they don't want us to be in Warpath all the time, because I think that's against their philosophy. I think they feel the same about the transformations for the Primalists, right? But I mean, okay, we don't need to be on it all like for 20 minutes, but does it need to cost like 11 mana at level 1 when you're like, you make a new character, you have 80 mana, and it's cost like you can cast it 4 seconds and then you're I don't know, it feels a bit too much.
yeah, I don't believe in that philosophy. I think that you should be able to build it the way you want. Maybe when it first starts out, you can't be in it at all times. It uses the mana way too quick. But you should be able to build it to where you can stay in it, but you lose the damage or you lose something about it.
I think it should be like, for example, what happens with Werber on Druid. Like, are you supposed to stay on it 100% of the time? No. Can you do it? Well, if you build properly with the mana efficiency and the crit and the roots and all that, well, you definitely can, right? Or not forever, but at least for like 50 waves straight in arena, right? So basically forever. But again, you choose to build it, and if you don't want to take that, you don't. And I think I agree with you. It should be player choice. No, it's I hate when like I feel like imposed, like that I can do something, like basically what you're saying. Yeah, it should be player option.
It does feel bad when you're being forced to play it one way.
Yeah, I agree. Because it makes every other choice feel like, for example, like in order to make it non-channable, they just make it like a super high mana cost, and then you're basically, in order to go against the depth's vision, you're basically investing into mana efficiency instead of just like trying to make the skill be more fun. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, you have to invest so many points into mana and channel cost and all this shit, when in reality, like, all these points you would like to use it somewhere else, not on mana efficiency, right? So like, I'm fine with using some points on it, but right now it just feels like then when you're making a Warpath build, the first thing you gotta like think is, okay, how the fuck I'm gonna make sure this stays on for longer than 5 seconds? And I think that's a bit, especially for new players, it's not really satisfactory, right, when you're playing the skill. But
yep,
I don't know.
I think the number one thing that I don't like about Warpath right now is the one thing that I like the most was its ability to pull, and I feel like that's the one way that nobody plays it anymore, because they just made it so just unflavorable. I mean, you have to go down, increase its cost by 4 mana just to get into the pool, and then you have to waste a bunch of points to actually make the pool good. So you've wasted 10 points just to get it to actually pull good, and now it costs a crap ton of mana, which means in order for it to actually last long enough to go get any enemies, you have to go put the rest of the points into the negative mana cost.
Yeah, and the worst part about this is, like, you think, maybe instead of using the pool from the actual skill tree, you can use the pool from maybe Echoes, right? That Echoes can pull enemies. But again, Echoes is gonna cost so much mana that how are you gonna get it? Like, you are never gonna be able to sustain it, right? So it just feels bad.
Yeah, and that's what our build was last patch. Before they made it to where you don't regen mana while channeling.
Mana,
you would
I don't like that
Warpath.
change.
Yeah, for Warpath it sucks. But that was how we played it
for
before.
most skills. Like, I don't see the point. Like, I don't know what you think about mana, but I just think mana. I think mana should be something that you kind of like have to care when you're building your character. You're leveling. You have to manage your resource, and when you're like level 100 and you're like fully geared, like the mana sustain should be like kind of like something that is just part of the build now, that you don't have to worry too much about, right? Like, kind of, I don't know. I dislike when mana becomes like a struggle with a character that is already like godlike.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
I think they had the right idea going when they switched it from being able to put mana regen on your staffs to putting it on 4 different
I think that's good.
item sets. The problem with that was you now have to take 4 suffixes to get that same amount as before. It needs a boost. If you want to really put into mana regen, you should be able to put suffixes on anything with mana regen and get enough of it
Yeah.
to where you can make a couple of spells super mana heavy and do good damage that way because you sacrifice so many suffixes for it.
Or just give us mana tools outside of gear, right? On the like, for example, I love what they did with Sentinel once again, with Vengeance and with Rive and Smite mana. It's fucking great, right? At the beginning, you're struggling with mana, blah blah blah. But then when you have your attack speed, your Vengeance, your Smite, throwing attack, all of those things, you kind of like forget about mana, right? With Sentinel, and if you think about what the class is, which is just like basically a tank, it kind of like makes sense, right? That the mana is not gonna be your main like worry. Like your worry is gonna be being tanky, doing damage, being a warrior, right? So,
and I think they nailed it with Sentinel and giving you multiple
I
skills
agree.
to try. The Smite one, I don't think I've seen anyone use Smite yet for self-casting.
I think it should. I think it should give you mana on cast
proc,
or direct or non-cast, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Smite should give it on the proc. The problem with that would
be
on
the proc too. I agree.
You might have too much mana from that if you get enough idols that proc.
Yeah, but maybe they can make Smite give a bit less than whatever, you know. Like they can just balance Smite a bit differently. So instead, Smite gives you half of the value, and that's it, you know.
Yeah, and that would work great. On the other, like the only thing I wanted them to stay away from is even though it worked really great on Sentinel, they started to copy that, and they did it for Tempest.
Yeah, I don't like it on Shaman. You mean, right?
Yeah, and
I don't like
Strike,
it on Shaman.
It took away from Tempest Strike. Now you've noticed that everyone is using Tempest Strike not to proc anything. You're just hitting the air so that you can get that mana so you can make all the other stuff do good. And I think
it worked for Sentinel. It worked for Sentinel, but just because it worked for Sentinel, I don't want to see it on other classes, right? Like I think, for example, what was the Shaman should just get like mana regen passives, like it, and that's, you know, it should. It's like a fucking warrior of the mountain, you know. He should have like something that fits thematically, kind of. Because right now it feels like you make a shaman, and you basically has to stop your flow of your build just to cause the same thing that we were talking with Warpath. It feels bad to stop doing your build to cast Vengeance to get mana. The same for shaman, right? You have to stop to cast your Tempest Strike to get mana, and I don't like that, especially because you can only get it with one skill, so it basically forces you to use that. I think they should do it with other skills. Like maybe they could also do it with I don't know. I just think they need to find a different way to do it on Shaman instead of just doing the Sentinel way.
Yeah,
we'll see what they do.
I feel like if they were to put that on Serpent Strike or on Swipe, that everyone would just keep using those and never use.
Yeah, but and then it's just like basically Sentinel with a different skin, right? Like I don't like that.
Yeah.
But for example, I like what they do. I think we need more stuff like when you cast Tornado, that you get the mana regen with the storm aspect or whatever it's called, right?
Yeah, the aspect of the storm.
Yeah, I think we need that. Just like when I think about Shaman, right? I just think about like a warrior imbued with energy and lightning, and I just think that kind of like fits the theme, right? That he would summon the storms and he would get energy from it or whatever. Like I want to see more of that. Just get him mana regen when he activates skills, or maybe mana back when he gets a kill, something like that. Which is also an interesting topic. What do you think about mana steal and mana on kill affixes, by the way?
I'm actually surprised they both don't exist in the game.
Like exactly, because those are this game is like super heavy Diablo 2 wise, right, in terms of gear and affixes. And those in Diablo 2 were super important. That's how you basically forgot about mana in endgame, right? Because you got your mana steal, your mana on kill and stuff, and then basically because you're killing it, if you're basically getting your mana back every time you kill something, right? So it becomes like this flow of infinite kind of like mana if you had good gear. So I'm very surprised we don't have anything mana-wise in that sense. I wonder if they will ever go that route or not, but...
Well, for me, there's two things I'm really surprised of right now. The first thing is they came out with all these new class-specific affixes that came out, and they gave the Primalist this new piece of gear. You can get a chest piece that gives you 5 to 10% mana regen.
Yeah.
So you would think that one of the class-specific shards, especially for that class, should be a mana regen. You should be able to put mana regen on the chest
on
and
your
the helm.
chest. Yeah.
It should be that special to that class. And instead
Yeah,
they
I
went
agree.
with giving you
Yeah.
Tempest Strike, which kind of went the wrong direction with it.
Yeah, I agree.
And then the other thing
They
is,
nailed it with Sentinel, but not for the Primalist, that's for sure.
yeah, the Sentinel should get it from its melee skills. The Primalist should get it from
Yeah.
gear. The Necro and the Acolyte classes should get it from leeching. They should be able to leech mana. That's how they should replenish it.
Yeah.
Instead, they got
And
Transplant.
they have tools, right? You have Transplant, gives you mana. You can get mana when minions die with Sacrifice, right? They have some tools there, right?
They do.
Acolyte mana is alright.
I don't feel like they struggle with mana at all. Like you
No,
can cast everything
exactly.
you
I
want.
think Acolyte is fine.
And
Yeah.
it's not that I think that it's fine. It's that I think Transplant's too powerful for mana back. I think it should have to hit an enemy for it to give you mana back, or it should have to do
maybe.
just
Yeah,
getting
so
that
it's like
30% back at all
steal.
times is too easy.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it makes sense thematically, right? Like you kill an enemy and you like absorb his energy, you get mana back. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, I feel like the mage is the one that should get mana back on teleport. I feel like the Acolyte should be leeching it from enemies. They should have like life drain, but it should be mana drain.
Which by the way, talking about sorcerer and mana, like for example, having to use focus on every build, right? That is like.
That's why teleport should have it.
I was talking about, I don't know who I was talking this with. I think I was talking with Vision, and we were mentioning how like maybe focus should be like an actable mana back, so like you press it and you get mana back, right? Kind of like what you do with Transplant.
Yeah.
But you could get something. I don't know if you played Diablo 2, but you have a passive called Warmth in Diablo 2 that basically gave you mana regen.
Yeah.
So maybe the regen component could be like just passives, like because it just feels weird that you're like a giant archmage that is critting the entire screen for 20k crits, but you have to stop and focus, right? It's like like it doesn't really make any sense that you're like this badass mage, but every 2 spells you have to like, I gotta recharge. It doesn't. I don't know. It makes sense at the beginning when your character is getting started out, and I don't know. We'll see what they do with that too. I just think I just hate focus feeling mandatory on Sork, but well, that's a different discussion, I guess.
Yeah, I think that they're going to introduce some new skills, and we don't have the 3rd mastery, so we don't know exactly what's going to happen there. But you have things like Mana Strike, where you can get the mana back, and I feel like they need to introduce one of those for the actual sorcerer. Something that can hit, that can give mana back, but not melee like the Spellblade gets.
Yeah, but again, the Spellblade mana costs, in my opinion, are so what they did to for example, what they did to Shatter Strike, I really dislike it, right? Like it went
expensive.
Like right now, you have to like if you make a Shatter Strike build, it's basically a Mana Strike build, because you have to Mana Strike more than Shatter Strike, because every time you Shatter Strike 2 times and you're And while yes, Shatter Strike was very strong, right? Last patch with the ward and idols and all that, and people pushed it like crazy, right? That build was fun, right?
Yeah, it was a fun build.
And now it's not fun, but right? So it's like, at least for me.
The best part about it was there was multiple ways to play it too. Like
yeah, exactly. You could
there was several people pushing it at the same time, and everyone was using different weapons, different uniques.
Yeah.
And it was actually fun to like try and find what was
different
better.
ways to get mana back. Some people use focus. You used focus and mana strike. You had like different. But right now it's so mana intensive that it's just like you use the skill and you can't use it.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point where it's drop shatter and just use mana strike with thunder.
Exactly. I think it completely break the playstyle. The playstyle was like go in, face tank, blah 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 blah. It was fucking sick, right? It make you feel like a god when you had like the good gear and the good idols, and you could still die. It still had his weaknesses versus single target and so on, right? But especially with the ward retention nerfs now, I think just the ward retention nerfs and the idol nerfs would have been enough. I don't think Shatter Strike needed the mana nerf, for example. But yeah,
it wouldn't even be that bad either. I think the other aspect of it that they were thinking was that the sorcerer and the mage can stack 500 600 mana when you really build into it.
Yeah.
But you don't get that on the Spellblade. The Spellblade
Yeah.
doesn't use those idols. It doesn't get that amount of mana. And if it did get 600 mana, then yeah, you could use Shatter Strike all day. It'd be like no problem.
Not only that, you can't really do that on that guy because he's melee also, right? So because with Sork you can get away building a bit more squishy, right?
Yep.
Like you pushed 350 waves with Meteor building HP, no protections. Like you can't do that with melee classes. You just can't, right? Because you're gonna be in the fight and you're gonna be getting hit by things. So
I don't even think I've gone back to the Spellblade this patch. I'm gonna have to go back to him. I do
I
want to
did.
try.
I did.
Did you?
I think you did. You have a 200 something push. I know because that's why I pushed, because I saw your push and I was like, I'll try it.
Maybe I might have just pushed the exact same one, but I should probably change it
Yeah.
up. I should try a high mana just to see if you can sit there, with Shatter Strike for an actual minute straight.
It just makes me think, right? The more mana you have, the more mana strike you're gonna have to use later on, right? So
I'd probably go to Focus, because I think Focus goes by a percentage-based regen, so you can get it back the same amount no matter how much you have.
I don't know. We'll see. I'm looking forward to see that.
I'm sticking with Sentinel for now, though. Alright, we need to get to the next skill.
Yep.
What do you think? Hammer Throw?
Yeah, Hammer Throw. Sounds good to me. Hammer Throw, I think I like Hammer Throw. I just think I only like half of the tree. Kind of like, I like the top part and the void part, and the other part is like what the chaining, like the electric hammer thingy. I don't even know what that does. So
I really want to say that I like Hammer Throw, but there's just something about it I don't like.
You know what I don't like? I don't like the hitboxes.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the hammers are too small and there's no way to make them bigger.
Yeah,
maybe
I feel like I feel like Hammer Throw, I always feel like I go to the dummy, I position myself perfectly, I test my damage is sick, right? But then when you go into arena and you have stuff moving and you can, so a lot of the times, like, it's hard to control your damage, actually, right? Like you're doing your hammers and sometimes you hit the enemy with 10 hammers and sometimes you don't hit with a single one and it's just sad, right? So maybe they just have to work a bit on the hitbox. I also like the animation, when you cast it, like regardless of where you're looking, it always casts on the same spot, right? So I think they gotta. I think you should be able to choose where the hammer spawns, just so you could shotgun properly like tanks, and because basically you have to position in a way now where you get the exact good shot, where all the hammers are hitting and stuff. And I just think it's so annoying because you're using their hammers melee range and it's like, wait, why are they not hitting? Oh, because I'm not using the hitbox properly, and it feels a bit, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little bit clunky with that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but I like the skill. It just needs to be a bit worked on. But I don't dislike the skill as the philosophy of the skill.
Yeah, I like it, and I like how you can build it differently. You can do the void, or you can, have multiple projectiles. You can make it spiral. You can make it chain. Like, there's lots of options, and it feels good. But there's just something about it. Like, you go to D2 and you do a hammer build, and it seems like it does really, really good. But then you go here, and it's like it never hits anything, or
the hitboxes they need some work. Yeah, I agree.
I think those hitboxes could definitely help. If you could add something to Hammer Throw, what would you add to its tree? Because there's actually one thing on it that I'm surprised it doesn't have.
I have no idea.
So the one thing with it that I'm surprised that they don't have is the ability for the hammers to split when they hit an enemy.
Oh yeah, like a sharp nail kind of mechanic.
Yeah,
I like that. So you have like bigger hammers, and when they hit, they become like two small hammers kind of thing.
Yeah, and they split off to nearby.
Yeah, that sounds sick. Actually, I like that, and it will maybe help the AOE situation too, right?
Yeah, that way when you miss,
clear trash.
Yeah, and when it could help with the hitbox problem when you have a bunch of hammers going and then they're all missing and then just only one hits. Well, that one now splits and it gets two more hits because instead of doing the spiral, it's now aimed directly at nearby enemies when it does the split. So like you're guaranteed some hits out of it.
Dude, you were talking about this, and I thought, dude, make hammers homing, dude. How crazy would that be? Or homing hammers.
That actually would be pretty cool.
Like I was just, like you cast your hammers, and the hammers like like a kind of like like an enchanted weapon chasing their enemies. It would actually be pretty cool. So that's what I want now. I want splitting homing hammers. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I want all of it.
We're gonna probably have to put that one on the forum.
Yeah. That's actually cool, and it would solve the hitbox, right? Because they would basically always hit with, well, or almost always hit with the homing.
Yep.
Kind of like what Fireball. I feel it kind of like makes sense thematically, right? Like the hammers are enchanted and they seek like the infidel or whatever.
Yeah, you wouldn't
Pretty
be able
cool.
to build into like the spirals or the chaining or
Yeah,
anything,
yeah.
but if you just took the
Yeah.
extra projectile section and you like,
Yeah.
you shot them straight up, they would, home towards the nearest enemy, just
Yeah,
being straight
and
shots.
they could pierce and home. Yeah.
I would say
Cool.
that's one thing that I do hate about it, is that to get the extra projectiles, you do have to go into the not having the hammers return to you.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that needs to be removed.
I think that note in general, that's the only note I don't like. And I think I mentioned this earlier on. That note just feels awful. Like what? Like at least if I'm gonna take that, the chance to deal double damage, then it should be like 100%, right? Because you're basically losing DPS by taking this. You went from doing a double hit to doing one hit with a chance to hit like doing double damage, right? Like if you're gonna take away my coming, like, my return, at least give me double damage. I think.
I actually think it's a really simple fix. All they need to do is draw a line from catapult to winged hammers. I think those two need to be linked so that you can bypass that for the projectiles. But that way you still have to do, because I mean it would be a problem if you had spiraling hammers and they return to you. So you do need that to get to that side.
Yeah, but maybe they could do this thing where if you like when you take a spiral hammers, then you got the, how it says, if you take this point, the return won't work. You know how they have that sometimes, where by taking 1 point you're basically negating some of the other passives.
Yeah, so
like for example,
simply just merge the two together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just make or iron spiral and stat it, whatever, the one that makes it not return, the same point basically. Just make it all 1 point.
Yeah, I agree. That one node needs some sort of change.
Yeah, that node fits. It just feels awful to get. It's a node that I don't want to get, and that should never, like, I am supposed to be getting stronger and not weaker. Like when I put points in my skills. So yeah.
So what do you think about down in the bottom right? You have Enra's Technique, the node that converts everything that you've built into in the entire tree into nothing, except hit damage. It's the one that's got the guy with.
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
So you've built your skill. You put 19 points in, and you said, "Oh, okay, they spiral, they're chaining, and they're orbiting." And then you take this one node, and it cancels all that shit out.
I mean, I think if it actually hit hard, right, I wouldn't mind it that much, right? Like if you could get if the hammer then would crit for like a shit ton, right? You could get like a big ass hammer that crit hard as fuck. I think it would be okay, right? Like you merge all the powers you gathered on the passives, and then you make this one hammer that is super strong. But obviously, it's probably gonna be hitting for like 300 anyway, right? So it's like, I'm gonna pass.
Yeah, I was curious what they were thinking when they made this. Like, I like the idea, that you can choose what effect you want by building a tree that way to get it. But I honestly think it just needs to go bye-bye. I think they need to get rid of it, and down here in the bottom right should be either the splitting hammers or enlarged hammers.
That's
or
a good idea.
Else. I think that node just
or the homing even. You could get the homing there.
Yeah. Or homing, splitting, enlargement. Any of those. Maybe hitbox increase or area increase, I guess is the
bigger, just size increase, right? Bigger hammers.
Yeah,
that's simple.
I think that's what should be down there instead. I think this Enra's Technique just needs to go out the door.
Yeah, I actually have never seen anyone use this. So
I tried it. It failed.
I mean, I bet you tried everything, Boardman. So I believe you.
The one other thing, and I think it's a tooltip that's pretty broken on it, is the whole battle rouse. You know, where you get the health gained
Mm-hmm.
on a hit, which
Yeah.
seemed like a really good thing. You could put 5 points in, and there was a 50% chance you were going to get 12 health back. But
Yeah.
what it doesn't say is that it gives it a cooldown. That's what it is. It puts a cooldown on the
really?
hammer throw. I don't. You haven't tried it. So if you
No,
go to
I
the
never tried that.
if you go to the very last one, it says that it adds a 5-second
Oh yeah,
cooldown.
5 second cooldown. Yeah.
And it used to not say that, and it just made it to where you thought you were going to get all this mana back for using it and health back, so you'd build into it, and then out of nowhere there'd suddenly be this cooldown on
Yeah,
the skill.
that's. I hate cooldowns anyway, man. Like I understand cooldowns on dashes and stuff like that, but I love when abilities I can just manage. You know, like how I use them and how I manage my mana. So I know if I spam an ability a lot, I'm gonna go So I gotta control my spamming, right? I hate when cooldowns get too much in the way. Like why would this ability have a cooldown?
Yep.
Like,
And that cooldown, like when that cooldown wasn't listed in the tooltip, a lot of people tried this. I saw it in Discord, like, oh, this skill's bugged. It's got a cooldown whenever I take this node. And it's just because they didn't word it on there. But a lot of people wanted to try it because it was like, oh, this is sweet. I can get some mana and some health. I really want to build into that. Now,
not so
cooldown,
sweet.
yeah, nobody touches it. There's just no point. Like,
yeah. Well, that's hammer throw pretty much, right?
Yeah.
I think it's good for leveling, by the way. Note mentioning. Like, I don't think I would use hammer throw in a endgame build because for the stuff that we mentioned about the hitbox and stuff. But I always level with them. I think for leveling they're great. They kill boss fast. The thing that because they have a pretty high base damage because they're throwing attacks, right? They don't scale with your weapon right now. I think they're very good for leveling on Sentinel. I always level with hammer throw.
Yeah, it's definitely a top 3 skill to level up with. I think I've done a couple of videos on the first skills to level up. It's in there. The void is just OP with it.
Yeah,
right
exactly. Especially for the big, when you are fighting like Primable Dragon or all the like big bosses, because all the hammers can hit, right?
Yep.
It just like melts them. It's really, really, really nice for leveling.
And then it slowly dies as you get towards the last chapter, and you're like, yeah, time to drop it.
Yeah, time to go shield throw or something. Yeah. All right.
Well, we got Lunge.
I love new Lunge, honestly.
You love it, huh? I feel like there's only one way to build it. Prove me wrong.
No, I mean,
I feel like it went from a defensive skill to an offensive skill.
I like that. I like that change for sure. What I must agree that half of the tree is useless. The other half I really like. Okay, I really like the crit increase, like initiative stuff. It's really I love that. I think the polearm option is pretty interesting. I've never actually went full polearm, but it's cool. Obviously, the unstoppable is still very good. The armor buff is very good, and the lunge charge and the blood rush, the healing, is really good. So. I just really like the change of philosophy, but maybe the tree needs more viable options, like the bottom tree, like all the, the bottom part of the tree. It definitely needs some love. But I actually love new Lunge. I love that you can use it offensively and you can just feel it when you use it. It's like, okay, we're going in, boys. I like it.
Yeah, initiatives and it's almost required to have initiative for any super crit build that you want to do because it's
if you're going crit for sure.
I mean, you're talking 240% increased crit. That's huge, for a global thing. And then you can be invincible while doing it. So
I love that, by the way. You know what I like about Lunge too? Is that Lunge, if you're a good player, it gives you option. It gives you option for skill to be a factor. I love skills that have that in Last Epoch. For example, you could say, Lunge. If you look at Lunge itself, okay, it's gonna give every player the same stats, right? If you use the same points. But how you use Lunge, right? You can juke fucking any hit in the game. Basically, if you use your travel time perfectly, you can use it to reposition. You can use it to travel maps faster if you know where to dash. Because you can dash to like the little objects in the map and stuff. So I really like how Lunge, like the unstoppable point, adds this like layer of gameplay skill. Because again, using Lunge properly, it can basically make you live in a fight that you shouldn't live just because you dodge that one shot, like that Soul Spear or whatever, you know. So I really like that.
You know, and I don't even know if I can judge the other half of the tree that we don't use because I haven't actually built into it. Just because it just looks useless to me. But now
I've
that I
used the
look
pole
at
arm.
it, have you done that?
I've used the pole arm, like, you know, because sometimes I have like one spur point, so I get, and I'm using a pole arm anyway, so might as well get the mana efficiency and the base crit chance.
No, that's a base crit chance for just Lunge itself, yes?
Yeah.
Does it do any good damage? I mean, it just seems like it's...
I mean,
yeah.
It's an extra hit on Lunge, right? So
that's true. I'm looking at these hit damages on the list.
And the mana efficiency is nice.
So you can get 120% more hit damage multiplicatively against full health, and then on top of that, you can get 100% more hit damage while traveling. On top of, you can get plus 10 base physical damage with it. On top
Lunge damage, man, and crit multi everywhere.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you can get another 100% hit damage if you have 5,000 or more armor on your character.
Yep.
Like that's quite a bit.
And you're always gonna have that on a Sentinel, right? So
I don't know if I have enough points to get all that put together, and then
you
won't be able to
thing,
get initiative.
Right?
But just looking at that, it might actually do decent hit damage. But then you're talking about having quite a bit of cooldown, and I think that's the one factor that's not going to work out well is that 66% increased cooldown. Like
the cooldown is very low anyway, right? But
I think it's 2 seconds, so you're looking at like a 3.5 second cooldown. I mean, if you think about that, that's one hit every 3.5 seconds. That sucks.
Yeah, but you can get also the tactician cooldown reduction, you know, to make up for it a bit.
30%.
Which I always take anyway.
Yeah, I still think there's only one way to build it. Even looking at the numbers, you're gonna use it as your global crit chance increaser and your invincibility while moving.
Yeah, pretty much. I agree. One way to build it, and you always want the second charge also, right?
So... Yes. Unless I'm feeling lazy and then I put it on Instacast, but
the classic.
Yeah, there's nothing better than doing a five auto casting skilled build.
Lazy.
Yeah, I like builds like that. Like I get off work and I'm like, man, I don't have time to think about 5 skills.
You're just chilling.
I am just gonna use vengeance and I'm gonna see how far I go with it.
Yeah, I feel you.
I'll find myself lunging into the worst spots too. Like, man, I moved my mouse in the wrong area.
Yeah.
That's the one thing about autocast that always gets me, is like I'll be trying to check the health on something or what affixes a mob has, but the moment that I hover over it, my autocast will like lunge me or teleport me right on top of it. Like, shit. I did not want to get that close.
Oops. I'm dead, I guess. Pretty funny.
Alright, you wanna do the skills that don't have skill trees? Like stances, or should we just skip those?
I mean, I think we can skip them, especially because stances are gonna get removed, right? From what I heard, they don't like stances. So
I heard the word reworked.
Reworked? Maybe they're turned into passives or something.
I don't know. They might give. A lot of people have been asking for trees on them, so maybe they'll do trees. When they said reworked, I think they were trying to rework them into the passive tree.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I heard.
But I don't know, because once they're in the passive
we can
tree...
mention them briefly. I know. Okay, manifest weapon. Sometimes I use the idols to cast more ignite, and that's about it because it doesn't have a tree, but it's a melee hit, so it casts Eye of Rin. So that's why I use it. With the idols that cast manifest weapon. The ephemeral stance, I think it's kind of like garbage, because you just lose your HP. I don't know.
It was okay. Emerald stance was okay when Warpath was giving you positive mana.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you
before.
You could throw it on there as a Void Knight Warpath and do it would give you a good damage boost.
Yeah.
Because
I don't know.
You'd only use the skill once, so you weren't losing your current health, and the more mana cost didn't matter because you were actually going positive mana while warpathing, and that just meant that you got a free 70% increased damage. So it wasn't horrible.
Yeah, but now I don't know.
Now you can't use it.
Jack stance is like 1 wonder, you know, especially if you're like building a character, you're not that tanky, you're leveling, you get Jack stance, easy mitigation, easy 50% armor. it's just 1 point. Why not? Especially when you're using procs of your bar like Smite with idols or whatever.
I used
think it's
Jugger
like
in the in that Rive build for a little bit, just
Yeah.
to be a little bit more tanky since I wasn't using Vengeance, because the reduced crit didn't matter because I had 100%
because you're gonna crit
chance.
anyway.
You lost a little bit of attack speed, that sucked, but the 15% less damage taken was, kind of made up for Vengeance a little bit. If it had a skill tree, I think it would have replaced.
Yeah, I can definitely see
trees.
if Jack had a skill tree, I can definitely see it being pretty good, for sure. I like Jack. I think I kind of like it. You put it on, you're tanky, you're slower. You get like a nice trade-off. I like Jack stance. And again, it's good enough that people can use it with no skill tree. So that's how good it is, right?
Yeah. And I think if they do give a stance or keep one, I think Jugger should get a tree. I think Emerald should go to like the passive tree, but I think Jugger should be locked behind Paladin.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A lot of people are going to argue that, but I feel like Forge Guard's already too powerful.
Too tanky. Yeah.
And if this was to get a skill tree, the Forge Guard would be the ultimate, tank choice. I think the Paladin should get it.
Yeah, especially since you could make it maybe a bit more. Because right now, Juggernaut stance, it sounds like more armor kind of based, but maybe they can just like retheme it a bit and be more like a, I don't know, concentration stance or something where you get like, you're like this holy warrior and you get like surrounded by holy energy kind of thing, and you're like tanky and a bit like a zealot kind of thing, where you're able to take damage and not die or whatever. I think that would fit the Paladin also.
Yeah, that'd be really nice.
Thematically,
Yeah. That would be where I'd put it, but I'm not in charge.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
I do think that it's going to be too powerful, though, if the Forge Guard has access to it. I mean, it would be like you'd have Forge Guard, you'd have to use Vengeance, and then if you could stack a tree on Juggernaut to reduce your damage even more, the Forge Guard would just be, the ultimate tank.
Which is maybe what they want, so I don't know. I think they can definitely touch a bit the Forge Guard passive, by the way, like the racial. They can definitely nerf it a bit. It can be 20% each, and we will be fine. It would still be very good. It doesn't need to be 30, in my opinion.
Yeah,
especially especially compared to the other passives, because I think the Paladin passive is whatever, like sure, like the damage is nice, I guess, like the damage boost, but the Void Knight passive, I mean, the echoes are nice, but I think the 50% increased melee void damage should be more, in my opinion. It shouldn't be increased, it should be multiplicative, in my opinion. So Void Knight really had that. You straight up did 1/3 more damage with Void Knight, straight up, so you would actually have a reason to go there. Because a 50% increased void damage, melee void damage, like, why do you even give a shit? Like you can get that with one echo. Like what? Like that's not even a stat at that point. But if it was more damage, then we're talking like, if you're critting for 4k with a Forge Guard, you're gonna be critting for 6k, right? And I think that would make Void Knight way more attractive.
Yeah, it would definitely give it more damage.
Yeah, but because I mean that 50%, if it wasn't there, you wouldn't notice right now. Like you wouldn't even notice. A 50% is nothing.
I'd notice. He told me. I would definitely notice. Oh jeez. Yeah. What do we got? Rebuke.
The legend.
I think this is old. I think this skill was one of the first ones that came out. I think it's due for a rework. I think it's going to completely change before the release of the game.
I like the left part of the tree, like
the only part that's usable.
Yeah, basically, the good part. Because to be honest, the buff it gives you, it's not 500 elemental procs for 4 seconds it lasts with the the stuff that gives it extra duration. Yeah, like 4 seconds. And 125 increased armor? It's not a joke, right? It's definitely not a joke. But again, it's a bit awkward to use, right? It definitely needs some updates for sure. I like the concept though, kind of like being a porcupine there, tanking shit, and then you like counterattack. It's not my playstyle, but
I think I posted. I'm pretty sure I did the build. I posted it.
You did the smelters, right, with
yeah,
the
the
Rebuke?
smelters wrath
Yeah,
with Rebuke, and they synergize decently together.
yeah,
There was a few different ways to build Rebuke, and instead of going protections, I went with the damage when you're taking hits, because basically what you were
yeah,
doing was it was only good for the arena, but you would just sit there and do Smelter's Wrath, and then you do
yeah,
Rebuke, and you just go back and forth between the two.
yeah.
And it was
Were you
really,
using Retribution too, like from the Sentinel, the
I,
counter attack?
I think, yeah, that might have been because you were taking so many hits. I mean, you
Yeah,
were staying
exactly,
in
and
one
it just
spot.
like keeps hitting. You're like a porcupine. It's kind of funny, but
Yeah, and it was
definitely...
really nice because Smelter's Wrath actually had a huge area of effect,
Yeah,
so you could almost get anything with it. And then Rebuke for all the melee that came in, you were hoping that every wave I wanted a pack of rats. I was like, give me some rats, make me take 400 hits in 5 seconds, and then just wipe everything out in one hit.
Yeah.
And I think I wish you could build more into the retaliation form on Rebuke.
Yeah.
I think it does. I like its retaliation. I like that you can increase the area by 150% while giving it some hit damage. That's a great node. I think the area should be increased, to 300. I think you should be able to build into it more.
Yeah.
The base void damage, that's garbage. It shouldn't be void, or I don't know. I don't like it. It should be like melee damage increased, or it should be +1 damage per hit that you've taken, or some way to like team into that.
Yeah, I agree.
Taking hits. And then the Void Essence chance on a kill. I think they just wanted to throw that in there. I mean, it doesn't synergize with like what was going on with any of it. I don't even know how it got turned into a Void skill.
Yeah, suddenly. Because this skill screams to me like tank, Forge Guard, kind of like tanky fortress kind of build.
Yeah,
and then suddenly, oh, by the way, you're a Void Knight DPS character. What?
Yeah, I don't know what happened with that. The tree just kind of went all haywire. They just wanted to throw something in, I think.
Yeah,
and it's old. It was one of the first skills that came out, so it's probably exactly what happened. They're just like, just throw something down there. I mean, look how long the lines are. They ran out of ideas. They made these lines like 6 meters long.
Yeah. Like, what if we do this? Oh, great idea. Put it in. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Rebuke will probably get some changes, right, and some love. So I don't know. We'll see. Not many people are using it. I think it's kind of fine if you are lacking defenses to use it as an alternative to the Devouring Orb or Sigils. To just like. But yeah, a good buff skill definitely needs something else to make it juicy.
I will say though, the one thing that Rebuke has going for it that makes it always wanting, like, I'm always tempted to use it, is for that 75% less damage taken while you channel.
Yeah.
Like
you're basically immortal if you're gonna get hit by a one shot and you use Rebuke at the right moment. You are basically God during the channeling.
I like it. The one thing that I think they need to change though is it shouldn't automatically release. I think that you should be able to channel it for as long as you want.
I see.
It should be that they should probably cap the damage that you can, actually deal. By taking hits.
With the.
But I don't like that it will like automatically end, and you don't really have a timer.
Especially since some abilities durations are different depending on their level and their modifiers. Because when you're doing the campaign, Rebuke is long enough to basically, you can basically use it to counter any attack. But when you get into the arena and you start getting these crazy enemies with fast modifiers and enrage and all that, Rebuke is just not gonna keep up, right? So maybe it would be nice if it had a bit more player control. Maybe the longer you stay on it, it starts getting a mana cost or something, just to make sure that you actually, if you stay on it for more than 2 seconds, it starts ramping up a bit of mana cost or something. But but it definitely feels awkward when you're using it and you're timing it perfectly, right? And you're completely negating, let's say, a flamethrower attack from a golem, right? And then the fire golem is just well, the fire goes a bit longer than Rebuke, so it's well, I guess I'm just gonna die because the skill doesn't last long enough.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be a they could even make to where you start taking that 75% less damage taken, starts getting less and less. It goes down to 70.
I like that. Yeah, so you get rewarded for timing it properly, but if you want to stay on it, you still get some benefit.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
You start losing its effect over time.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that. That's cool.
I feel like the mana would be kind of counterproductive with the mana regen and the mana on hit, but who knows? I just feel like it needs to not be a timed thing. Like I hate in the arena, like you said, where you're like, okay, I think I have enough time to take this next hit, and then it goes out right before you take the beetle hit or something, and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Okay, shield rush, I guess, right?
Dude, that's a skill that I have never used.
I actually have never used it myself, but I know enough what it does. Right?
I've seen it.
I've seen the lasers. I've seen the back and forward. I've seen the crazy stuff.
Yeah,
people like it because you can move fast, right? Pretty much, but
yeah, it's a rush. And I think I watched McFluffin play it a lot. He really liked it, but it's a skill that I looked at and I'm just like, nah.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same. I'm not gonna lie. Like I just go a bit slower. It's fine. But I don't know. People like it. It has some crazy interactions, like this node that gives you more damage, right? But you do more damage, but takes away your HP or some shit. A health cost with no cooldown. The Rush of Sacrifice, it's called. And it costs 15% of your HP per cast, and you can like permacast it because it has no cooldown.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it goes pretty crazy. Because you take the mana memory and you take the Rush of Sacrifice, so you basically can use it forever. And you're like boom, 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 and it's but your life, every time you need to have a shit ton of leech, or you just lose all your HP pretty much. It's kind of crazy.
Kind of tempted to at least try it one of these days now. It looks like there's a few different ways to build it.
It's one skill you haven't played, Boardman. You better try it. Like you're losing your credibility here.
I'm okay with that. I do see it's got a lot of void damage built into it. I'm curious if it was made for the Void Knight.
It looks like. I mean, it also has the void beams, right?
Yeah,
so
void beams, void damage. It's what's really funny? I'm looking at Will Breaker down here. There's a lot of this more hit damage versus full health. I noticed that's on a lot of Sentinel skills. You have that on Erasing Strike. We have it on Shield Rush. We have it on Hammer Throw. You have it on a lot of stuff. You have it on Rive, I think. You have it on Lunge. It's just really weird for me to see that. It's really weird that you would see a tank go into a fight and get like I mean, I kind of get it. Like, you get the first hit, you take the threat. It's a really big first hit. But then after that, you're just garbage.
Yeah, I never take those. I always take the other ones. The one that makes you do more damage when an enemy is damaged. Because then you can, after the first hit, every hit counts. So.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a long fight because you're a tank.
Exactly. It's gonna be long.
Doing a lot. But I'm surprised they haven't added in other options. Like I feel like there's way more effective ones that are funner. Like I really like the mage. The mage has really, or I guess I should say the sorcerer more in general. But but the spellblade has a little bit. They have a lot of fun ones. Like I just found on Elemental Nova, me and Fo were working with it. It's literally got a node where you get 30% more multiplicative damage for like 4 different ailments. So if you chill them, freeze them, shock them, and ignite them, you're trying to do all 4 of those to an enemy, and you get that 120% more multiplicative damage. Like, that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun trying to put a whole bunch of different types of ailments into your build just to try and get damage out of a skill. But yeah, versus full health damage, I'm just not a fan of it. I mean,
not a fan.
Unless you one-shot things, which is the exact opposite philosophy that they want in this game.
Exactly.
It doesn't really do you much good.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe it's like an old idea that it's still there in the skills, Because a lot of the skills are just old.
That's the weird thing. That's why I was saying they put it in the Lunge. Like, Lunge is brand new, just reworked.
But Lunge kind of like makes sense, kind of, because you're kind of like going in, right?
I guess that's true. You're going in, you're getting the first hit, but yeah, maybe they think it's. Maybe they know something we don't know. I'm just assuming that's probably the fix they wanted the Sentinel to have. They're like, we've given this to this character. I think the Sentinel is going to be damage versus full health. That's going to be one of their strengths.
But yeah, I don't know, they're never gonna be full health after the first hit, so it's like a bit okay.
I mean, I guess it makes sense in a few ways, because since you do such crap damage as a tank, you get that good damage hit in there, and then for any mob that has regenerate health, it goes back to full. So like you keep getting to use it.
Yeah, man.
You just never kill them.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Yeah, you gotta wait for the rest of the teammates to catch up to finish it off for you.
Yeah, pretty bad.
I don't have that much to say about Shield Rush. Like I said, I've
Yeah,
never
me
used
neither.
it.
I think good mobility, kind of like a fun skill, but not really used on any endgame, right? So I'm not that familiar with it.
Yeah,
at least at the moment.
I haven't seen any build guides on it. Not endgame build games or guides.
Well, maybe
anyway.
that's one to the list, Boardman.
Or
now you have six build guides.
Or there's a reason it's not there, and I shouldn't waste my time.